So, episode 2, part 2 of a discussion that we started last week, which was about Shavuot and the covenant and the relationship between the two. We ran through historical context of Shavuot, what the relationship is between Shavuot and Matan Torah. We discussed the very interesting history of Philo and how he was the first one to bring up the relationship between Shavuot and Matan Torah.
As a day of celebration.
As a day of celebration, right. As a day to celebrate the receiving the Berit. But before we even go into the next part, I think it's important to discuss the name of the podcast, the Dynamic Tora Podcast, and why you chose that name, why you believe it really fits what we're trying to accomplish with our discussions and what we want to put out to the world.
The Torah is the oldest book by definition in human history. Why do I say this? It's a book that has a chronology. It's a book that records the lives of individuals, their families, their struggles. It contains the birth of a nation from both the patriarchs and the matriarchs of the nation. That's unique. We know who we stem from. We know their names. We know their lives. We know where they came from. We know our ancestry. The birth of the nation that went through an enormous struggle of oppression in Egypt, as well as the journey that is leading them to be proposed a covenant that is a moral pattern of behavior in the eyes of God, instructed by God. The struggles they have during the journey until they reach the promised land of Eretz Canaan, Eretz Israel. All those narratives, right, are written in a way that contain endless messages. Endless. See, there's two facets of the Torah pretty much. You get the legal portion, the legality of it. Okay. Mitzvot, descriptions of many rituals, specifically for korbanot, for sacrifices, yes. The other part of it really is all different types of narratives. Okay? It starts with narratives of course, creation, which is the foundation of all narratives. It's the beginning of everything. And it puts God at the center. And all creation, right, is, in a sense, stems from God. Everything. It stems from His will. Of course, not from an actual physicality. His will is creation. Vayomer Adonai, 10 times in Bereshit, Vayomer. As Sa'adiyah states very clearly, he says in Arabic, Washa'Allah, God willed it. It's not even past tense, it's right now. God wills not only the creation, the way He created it, but God wills creation to be as it is right now, constantly. Okay? And it begins with this fascinating story and a whole unfolding. Of course, there's this whole anti-polemic feature in order to knock down the other mythologies of creation of the other nations at the time, which were a few, and they were very well known. The Jewish people knew them. They knew the Egyptian one. They knew the Babylonian one. They even knew the Assyrian one. There were a good half a dozen. There were, and the Torah is challenging in its own way. Right? The same thing when it brings the stories of Adam and Hawa, the first 2 chapters in this garden, it's also using polemics against the whole concept of where did humans stem from? What's the purpose of humans? Right? What do humans serve in the universe, ultimately? Right? It's also challenging what the pagan mythologies believed. Okay? And it sets the record straight. Clearly, it gives the highest value to human. All human. Right? So, and of course, there's a tremendous figurative language in those stories that has to be seriously and critically analyzed, understood within the context of the time of what they thought those things represented, the allegories containing in it, and ultimately it represents God as the moral instructor of humanity. This is key. This is a central theme that runs throughout the entire Tanakh. God is the moral instructor and guider of humanity, and nobody else. This is the clash that we have as humans throughout the course of our history, even till today. Is God the one who instructs and says what morality is, or do humans? And this is still a clash. It really is. Okay? Even, let's assume, the pagans who had different gods, they're all a fabrication of their own imagination. So even let's assume that one of God A or B, C of Assyria, of Egypt, or of Babylon, Mesopotamia, or even Greece, that told their people do X, Y, and Z, and don't do X, Y, and Z, it's really them who they're creating their own code, because it's a fabrication of a God that they made up. It's their own imagination. Of course, kings were viewed as divine, as the physical embodiment of the gods of the ancient past, which eventually goes through this idea and concept, goes into early medieval Europe and medieval Europe. That the king ruled by divine right, which basically meant he can do no wrong. He can even think no wrong. This was something that was acceptable by law in England up until the mid-1800s, by law. So it's not even above the law even. No, he is the law. So come human, claiming divinity, whatever you want to call it, displacing God. Displacing God's role. That king is never going to claim I created the universe. Paro claimed, I made the Nile and I made myself. Yehezkel says this. Li ye'uri ve'ani asitini. Right? Your order is mine, and I created myself. But you never had like these kings who were viewed as God. They never claimed to be the creators of the universe. But what did they claim? I'm the physical embodiment of the God who actually will dictate to humanity, to the people I rule, how to be.
So it's power.
Yeah, it's all about power. It's all about power. Nothing's changed. We have to come to terms that although we speak of ancient people, prehistoric humans, Renaissance, pre-modern, postmodern, post-postmodern, Reconstruction, post-Reconstruction, we got to understand, those are nice terms in order just for us to understand the difference between the ages, but there is absolutely no difference at all as to who we are as a species, how we think, the way our brain is hardwired, how we feel, how we react impulsively or not, our anxieties, our fears, our egos, It's the same throughout the course of human history for thousands and thousands of years. Comes the Torah and suggests, okay, proposes, that's what Chachamim, the Sephardic Chachamim use the word melitza. Even though melitza can be termed rhetoric, it's not Greek rhetoric. It's not a dual. No. The melitza of the Tanakh is to suggest another path, a remedy to those vices that we humans have. We have it. We can't deny it. And part of the narratives in the Chumash, as well as in the Tanakh, it's so transparent. It shows the heroes, right, have vices. And by them, for a moment, they forgot of what God's virtues are, failed. But at the same time, there's recourse. There's teshuvah. There's admitting our failure. The Torah is one of the main things the Torah wants to get out of people. Be it the narratives we learn from it, the teachings, be it the fact that we have mitzvot that have to do with God, mitzvot that have to do with humanity, as well as going beyond doing other things for humans. The central ingredient is anava, is humility. It's humility. That is where the Torah is trying to guide and lead humanity to, ultimately. If we're conceited, why are we going to listen to anybody but ourselves? There's no room for the Torah for a person who's conceited. Chachamim say this. Wherever there is ga'ava, wherever there is arrogance, Bara Olam, God is not there. However, wherever there is humility, anava, that's where God is. It's brilliant. Brilliant. It's either God is the center or human is the center. It's black and white. God does not share his domain with us. No. His domain is his domain. Okay? His role is his role. Okay? As well as we don't share our domain, our role, with God. In other words, there's the border. And this is where it's leading. Why am I saying this? It's leading to Matan Torah. This berit, this covenant that we spoke about, that is going to be presented to the Jewish people by entity called Adonai, who is Elohei Israel, who is the God of Israel, right? Who is also, Elohei Kol Haaretz, El Olam. He is the creator of all. Yeah, but the personal is between Am Yisrael and God. This covenant is between us and God, and the Jewish people, who is another entity. It's one entity composed of many citizens, as well as foreigners who chose to be part of that covenant and part of our nation. And it's an agreement that was contracted freely, totally free by the people. Before the revelation, on the third day, where God, in a sense, comes down, prior to that, there is talk between God and Moshe, Moshe and the people, Moshe and God. There's this dialogue going on. And we don't know how long this dialogue was really going on. Although within one pasuk, it swoops everything and says, yeah, we accept. But clearly, in order for the message to be disseminated by the heads of the families and the tribes, there has to be talk about it. Because if God wants the people of Israel, the citizens, to accept freely the Torah, they need to know what the proposal. Oh, yes, this is what he said. This is what he. Oh, so there has to be some talk among each other, as well as first Moshe speaks to the women, then he speaks to the men, as well as later on Moshe tells the people to separate from men and women. Al tigishu el isha means you're not going to have any physical contact with women, with your wives. Why? God wants the covenant to be accepted with complete free will. More than this, the presence of God is nowhere seen prior to the revelation.
Meaning, once God makes his proposal, and then Moshe Rabbeinu disseminates the message, God is seemingly.
Not there.
Seemingly.
His presence is not there.
Right.
It's not like suddenly there's a cloud and all the stuff that's suddenly going on the third day in the morning, and fire and all that. The presence of God is not to be seen by the senses. Of course, God is everywhere. We get that, but that's already abstract thinking. Here, the way God is going to reveal himself through the forces of nature, with his word at the same time, is not seen on purpose. So the people are not intimidated. So the people don't feel somewhat of a fear and a terror. I have to accept, or else that lightning bolt is going to zap me. Whatever way they thought, be it primitive or be it more superstitious, it doesn't make a difference. Mm-hmm. God's presence is not there on purpose. So the people choose freely, knowing what they're about to get into. At the same time, at the end of the journey, before Moshe seals the whole deal, like we spoke about in the Parashat Nitzavim, right? Moshe says, you are standing erect, all of you, lifnei Adonai Elohim, in front of God, in front of Adonai, your God.
Right.
He's not there. There's no Har Sinai and fire and smoke. No. The people were able, the new generation specifically, was able to transition from necessary theatrics at Sinai, for them to be, whoa, wow, look at the power, look at the awesome power, look at this, whoa. Because they were used to that. They needed that. They needed their five senses to feel it. Whereas their children, the next generation, we don't need that anymore. We understand God conceptually, abstractly. We don't need the fire, the lightning, the thunder, the smoke, the shofar sound. We don't need it. Because Moshe says, Lifnei Adonai Elohim. You are standing Lifnei, in front of God. Yes. That 40-year transition is one of the greatest human phenomena ever in history. How did that transformation happen in such a short period of time? For things to change the human mind of how we think, years and years and years. Look at some of the most fundamental concepts of the Torah. Right? All humans are created in the image of God. Therefore, all humans have equal intrinsic value. How long did that take humanity to start really expressing it without any discrimination by law in society? Thousands of years. Even in America, it was still going on in the 1960s. Look how long. You know why? The moral code of God goes against our impulsive nature, our impulsivity, our ego, our arrogance, our haughtiness, which is basically, I'm superior to you. It teaches us a different path. No. That's why it's a struggle. It's not easy. Again, we said this before, that the mitzvot are tools that try to lead us to that. Sometimes, unfortunately, the mitzvot are used as weapons to put down. Unfortunately.
That reminds me, there's an interesting midrash, I forget which parasha, that likens the Torah to, what is it? To a book.
Sama hayim, sama mavet.
Sama mavet, sama hayim. Right, there's one, but also as a book
and a sword.
Book and a sword.
Yeah, that when God gave the Torah, right? He gave the Torah as a book and with the sword together. Basically, again, the Torah can be used as a weapon against others. Yes.
So it's a tool.
It could be used as a tool, yes. Yeah. I mean, there were nations or groups or even faiths that used the Torah as a tool to discriminate. No, you missed the point. That's not a fundamental. You missed the main fundamental of the Torah. What are you doing?
Right.
You're taking, I don't know, one pasuk or chopping it up and using it to do the opposite of what God is saying. So this covenant that we have with God, which eventually is the Torah that we have, okay, is the agreement of the Jewish people to accept a moral code that is given by God as well as governed by God. Okay? So no human is above it. No human is above the law. Nobody. More than this, Chachamim tell us that even God cannot change the covenant.
What does that mean?
It means that once we agree to it as an entire nation, as an entity with God, this is what it is, no one has the right to change it anymore. That's it. It's final. The only way, in theory, that anything can change in the scripture, in the written law, or to add or to take away a mitzvah, is if there's going to be another revelation at a place where all the Jewish people are going to be present and have a conversation with God through another Moshe Rabbeinu, an appointee that we trust. And by the way, God, well, by the way, Jewish people, no, then yeah, but in theory, of course, it's not going to happen. But once it's sealed, that's why you take away one letter. It's pasul. It's no good. Forget one mitzvah. One letter. Okay? To concretize what it is. Right? That we should not be playing around with it.
So it sounds fixed.
It is fixed. God's moral code is permanent. The human moral code is always transitory. It's always changing, depending on the whim of those who are in power, depending on who has a louder voice, be it in the media or be it in a religion like the church, be it that you have philosophers or the enlightened people, academians who say, this is reasonable, this is not reasonable. Or be it, this is for the greater good. Yeah, but what about the 20% that it's against them? Well, as long as for the greater good, we don't care about the 20%. Have a good day. Or be it those who want to propose that we should copy the natural world, which is what? Survival of the fittest. So if I can offer you a moral code that will guarantee your survival, of course, people would be very convinced with that. Why? Because it's all egotistical. It's about the survival of the self and no one else. Which leads to, unfortunately, what happened in the beginning of the 20th century. The elimination of people who were deemed unworthy or unnecessary or inferior, Untermenschen, like below. It leads to that. It leads to oppression. The same way when the Spaniards, not with Columbus, after Columbus, when really the Spaniards in the early 1500s came to the Americas and they viewed the natives as not human.
The conquistadors.
As really as beasts. In their own writings they write this. Yeah, and again, and these were so-called religious Catholic who had a sword and had power.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop you there because you just said that it's fixed. So contrast that with the name of the podcast. Going back to it,
Right.
because
So,
you're saying that this is fixed and can never change.
yes.
So what's so dynamic about the Torah then?
The Dynamic Tora is that it demands to be interpreted. As Chachamim have a derasha that, the derasha, the Torah was given, nitena lidaresh. It was given in order for it to be interpreted within boundaries of the covenant. You can't go beyond the boundary.
Okay.
Okay? This is very important to understand. You cannot come up with interpretations that's going to annul this, or that's going to annul the mitzvot, or it's going to now fabricate what God is not. No. That's off limits. For the same reason, the Supreme Court of the United States cannot interpret the Constitution out of bounds what the Constitution is. They can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
If they do it, this is what called derashot shel dofi. These are interpretations that come to annul, undermine, invalidate the thing that you're interpreting. So what are you doing? This is what This is what the church did. This is what the Christian fathers of the church did. The church fathers, what they did, including Jesus as well as Paul, they invalidated it. Derashot shel dofi. Yeah. Hence lamanim v'lamalshinim. So what does it mean that the Torah is dynamic? The Torah, it's up to us to keep the Torah unfolding in order for us to find relevance and meaning to the present. This is what commentators did for thousands of years, both Jewish and non-Jewish. Now, the same thing today. We have some great rabbis, some great scholars that are revisiting, both in the traditional sense, as well as combining more modern tools of analysis, of interpretation, the text of the Torah, and showing that this is still alive, this is still real, which goes back to what I was saying. Our nature didn't change of who we are. The Torah, this is something I've been thinking a long time. When Chachamim tell us, Ishmael, when he says that Diberat Torah b'shon ben Adam, the Torah speaks in the language of human. That's on the superficial level. Yeah, it's obvious, because this is human language. All language is human invented, right? Obviously that, but it's what else is it saying? It's speaking to the status of the human. It's speaking to the struggles of the human. It's speaking to the soul of what a human is. Okay, great. In addition to that, when the Chachamim say that Torah speaks in the language of humans, it's basically saying that this book is the greatest connection you're going to have to learn what it means to be human. And it's challenging, because our nature, our biology, pulls us to be more like beasts sometimes, or too often. We're living in both worlds, really. We're living both in a bestial world, yeah, and a human with Tzelem Elohim world. We eat, we drink, we excrete, yes. We sweat, we sleep, we have intercourse. We're doing all these physical things all the time, non-stop, all the time. It's necessary for the physicality to exist, which is fine. Comes the Tzelem Elohim that the Torah is speaking to, and says, govern yourself when it comes to your actions, of how you are going to deal with your physicality, with parameters, as well as how you are going to conduct yourselves with others. That is how your Tzelem Elohim is going to shine. The Torah is the only book in ancient history that ever suggested something so radical. It's radical. It's revolutionary. And that's the covenant. God wants humans to be the best version of themselves with the Tselem Elohim that He gave us. And we cannot do it on our own with our own fabricated instructions. Every time we tried, we failed miserably. And God knows this. So therefore, not only did He create humanity, He didn't abandon us. He didn't. From the inception of Adam and Chava, which is the beginning of humanity as we understand ourselves, there's instruction. And later on, with Cain, there's instruction. With Noah, with Abraham and son, and ultimately, the instruction is the covenant, is the Torah, it's Matan Torah. This is it. So He didn't abandon us. He's not a cruel God. No. That's what the Torah is. The Torah is a book of teachings and instructions, both from the legal category and the non-legal narrative category. So the whole thing that is dynamic is the non-legal elements in it, the narratives, have to be reread through our lens. And how does it make sense now? What can I connect it to with more information that we know today about who we are, our psychology, our behavior, our frailties, our concerns, our behavior towards one another, our society. Mm-hmm. We're judging. We're always judging, by the way. You choose A or B, you're judging. Okay? We always are. So through what mechanism are we going to judge? How do we know what's right and wrong? How do we know what's good and evil? How do we know what's acceptable and not acceptable? How do we know what's just and what's kind? How do you know? That comes to Torah and tells this to us. That element, this dynamic aspect, is to always, what else is it saying? The layers of the Torah are endless. Endless, because it's always speaking about the human condition. And we're still trying to figure ourselves out. We'll never be able to know ourselves 100%. Impossible. We didn't create ourselves. Okay. In addition to the legal element, it's also dynamic. That's where old tradition and halakha comes to play. We cannot fulfill the Torah as the text says. To fulfill the mitzvot, the Torah Shebe'al Peh, the oral tradition of the Jewish people, defines how to fulfill a mitzvah. That's exclusive to Am Yisrael. That has nothing to do with the non-Jews. Nothing to do. Okay? That's exclusive to us. Why do you do that? Listen, that is our oral tradition. Okay? Part of it comes from the time of Moses. Part of it comes through the course of 40 generations from Moshe to the end of the Talmudic period. And then it unfolded or, disseminated differently throughout the course of about 1,500 years in the different communities that we lived in, both in Europe and the Middle East. It's dynamic.
So it can't be
it cannot be static.
To assume or to say that the Torah can't change and that we have to stick within a certain group of commentaries or certain group of understanding of what halakha is, and that for us to think or assume that this is the way it's always been, it's an incorrect assumption to make, because we've been living for thousands of years and there must have been something that has kept it going.
Or else it becomes obsolete and meaningless. Or else it becomes a nice fixture in a museum. Thank you. But since the Torah, the way we used it, okay, as a tool both to govern ourselves from a legal point of view as a nation, right? Be it in Israel and out of Israel, because we were in both,
Yeah.
right? As well as it teaches us the beautiful, again, narratives with its moral messages. Right? What did they do wrong? What did they do right? A lot, non-stop, all the time. So it leads us how to conduct our behavior. That is always applicable. It's always applicable. So when it comes to commentaries, for example, there's thousands of commentaries. Everybody has their different flavor. Everybody can choose whatever they appeals to them, whatever has more meaning to them, whatever they connect more with. Okay? Why invalidate one over the other? No. Fine. Whatever you prefer. Right? And at the same time, it continues. Why should we say that, only these commentaries for the past X amount of years, after this year, no more commentators. We killed the Torah. And when within a course of a generation or two, we can't relate to it anymore if we're not allowed to interpret it and make sense out of it to the now.
And I think that's what the covenant, in its ultimate sense, also proposes. Meaning, like you said before, it's that freedom.
Yeah.
It's the freedom that the covenant and the Berit really grants to Am Yisrael in order to give it the system, in order to give Am Yisrael the system in order to operate within, and then also unfold and continue carrying it forward from one generation to the next and transmit it. And that really starts here.
Yeah,
that starts with HaKadosh Baruch Hu proposing it from the get-go.
Yeah.
And then only after HaKadosh Baruch Hu proposes it, Moshe passes the message along. And Am Yisrael discusses and deliberates, like you said before, and they say, yeah, we're in, naaseh, right? One word they say, right? They say naaseh. Only then does HaKadosh Baruch Hu then further instruct Moshe to go to Am Yisrael and tell them, okay, now you guys have to do your separation. Now you guys have to get ready for the boundaries. Now we're going to set a perimeter for the Har Sinai as well. And in 3 days, it's go time. I'm now going to then, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to say, I'm going to propose to you. This is the beginning of my proposition, which is the Aseh Dibero.
Yes, yeah. So why do I like to use the word propose, to propose? God is not a dictator. God is not an oppressor. God is here to propose and suggest to us, this is how you should live. You won't have doesn't mean you'll have a perfect life. It doesn't guarantee you success. It doesn't. It doesn't. But will it give you more meaning in life? Yes. Will you realize that there is use for you? Yes. Will you realize that you are important? Yes. Will you realize that you really have free will and responsibilities? Yes. That, yeah. If you're under this covenant, that, yeah. Success? No. At the end of the day, isn't blessings a matter of interpretation also?
I mean, they are in the eye of the beholder, if you really think about it.
Not in the eye, in the mind.
Mind, sure.
See, for us, it's in the mind of the beholder, because you got to process.
Oh, okay.
You got to analyze. You got to digest. Do I have blessings or not? Yes, we do have blessings. Yes, we do. Tefillah helps us realize those blessings. You know how? By telling God, you are the one who grants intelligence. You are the one who allows us to have repentance and forgiveness and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. We'd still need some help because we're finite. We fail. We're not organized all the time. Ultimately, tefillah, first and foremost, is praise of God. The Hallel. The book of prayer is Tehillim. Right? What is it supposed to trigger us? When we're Mehalel Adonai, when we praise God, we're saying, I understand, I see the blessings that you give me. And if I have a little request, can you do a little extra for me? That's the request. Not the other way around. Prayer is not about asking. Prayer is about recognizing through praise of God how much He gives us. The fact that we're alive is a gift. We shouldn't be. We shouldn't be alive from the point of view of God's justice, because we go against. And two, we shouldn't be alive from the point of view of science even.
What do you mean?
It makes no sense that there is life on Earth. Mathematically, probability, no. This is something that more and more scientists and geneticists and biologists and mathematicians, it doesn't make sense that there's life on Earth. Forget human life is even, intelligent life is even, not even a question anymore. Just, a basic, a single living cell. It doesn't make sense how it came to be. So that's a different podcast.
Yeah.
When we do Bereshit,
It's a different,
we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But it just shows you that His grace is ki le'olam chasdo. His grace, His kindness is eternal. What does eternal mean, really? I don't understand what eternal is. I'm not beyond time. Constant. It's constant. That's le'olam. It's constant. So when we say that the Torah is eternal, again, I don't understand that. I didn't create time. I'm finite. I can understand that the Torah is constant. Its truth is always and constant. God's moral code, never change it. It's permanent. Which leads us to the revelation. God tells Moshe, in 3 days, we're having a meeting. We agreed to the back and forth. We agreed to have an open dialogue of what this covenant is going to contain. Now we're going to meet in order for us to formalize this and not say hearsay, not say, oh, maybe third party, not say, oh, I don't know, was it Adonai or was it some, I don't know, jinn or some heebie-jeebie force? No. Comes the revelation of God to substantiate the existence of God, as well as the legislator of what this covenant is going to be.
The existence of God.
Yes.
What, they didn't have the proof already?
There's no proof.
What, they didn't see the Makot? They didn't see Yam Suf? They didn't have the tradition from going back to Avraham Avinu through Yitzhak and Yaakov and the tribes?
Did they experience it? No.
They didn't experience the Makot?
Well, the Makot, these are crazy flukes of nature. What did most people think when it came to natural forces? Many gods. And who says that this is God doing it? Well, because Moshe said so? Or happens to be Moshe is doing it. Splitting of the sea. Moshe goes like this, split. Oh, well, Moshe is doing it. Moshe has control over the God of the sea. I'm thinking the way ancient people who had pagan beliefs were contemplating.
So you're putting yourself in their shoes.
I am putting myself in their shoes. It did not substantiate, Yam Suf did not substantiate the existence of God. Although Vayosh Adonai, Ba'adonai, Moshe, they believed in Adonai, they trusted in God. Okay, did that demonstrate to them who God is? No, God never spoke to them.
Meaning, I'd take it further that it sounds like also that it wasn't enough for Am Yisrael, so to speak, to then accept God as Ribon Olamim, Anochi Adonai Elohecha, and as a result, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu being the one to instruct them with the mitzvot.
Correct.
Meaning, it was just, okay, you got us out, awesome, like, okay.
It was strictly a belief. And the belief depends. Is it strong? Is it weak? To know is very different than to believe.
Okay, so
we spoke about this also.
Right. So go more on that. So now the Berit, like you said, it established to Am Yisrael the knowledge of God and that He's the creator of the universe? And that He is the one who took them out of Mitzrayim.
First
right?
took them out of Mitzrayim, who happens to be also, like, by the way, I also created the universe. Hence, I can demonstrate that I'm in control of all these natural forces that are happening during the time of the revelation. Why was it needed? Why in the morning on the third day suddenly you have thunder, lightning, a loud sound, a blown sound of a horn, shofar, which is clearly some powerful wind, because that's how sound travels. Then you have thick smoke on the mountain. Then you have a whole fire. The mountain is on fire, and then you have the mountain shaking. The earth is shaking. These forces demonstrate the enormous power of nature, and God is saying to them, I'm in control of this. And since I'm in control of it, I created it. Therefore, it's not many gods who control different forces. No. Anochi Adonai Elohecha, who took you out of Egypt, is in control of this entire scenario. Anochi, singular. 2, the second person, singular. First person, second person. Mm-hmm. In order to inculcate in them that your belief, your trust in me is based on an experience. It's not based on hearsay. No. That is what substantiates that experience so powerful. That is why it was necessary in order for it to be a covenant in the first place. How can you have a covenant that's based on third person or based on, someone said so? I don't think anybody in their right mind would be willing to agree to a contract, to sign a contract based on hearsay. I'm not present. I ain't signing. I don't have this thing in front of me. I don't know who the other party is. Am I going to sign something? Nobody in their right mind would do that. And since we think as humans, God says, I'm going to answer that question to you. My presence is going to appear to you in the following way, both through nature, the forces of nature, as well as my word, my dialogue. And this is something I shared with my classes this week about Shavuot. This is key. God manifests His presence, call it, as well as His will, His intelligence, in 2 ways. Creation, which is the laws that govern the universe. Mm-hmm. Everything from the microcosm to the macrocosm, everything. Okay? As well as His will is manifested through the Torah. That and that. It's a combination of both. Okay? It's a combination of both. So, can the human mind understand and see God's manifestation, the way His intelligence is manifested in the universe through science? Yes. Do I need to be a prophet? No. That any balanced mind can actually have access. Be it a simple-minded person, be it some Einstein and Newton, astrophysics. Yes. Huge spectrum of human understanding, being able to see God's intelligence being manifested in creation. Yes, done. However, there's something above that. When it comes to His will, we need key individuals who developed that first portion of seeing God's intelligence manifesting in the physical world, right? To be able to tap into His will, which is His code, His moral code to humanity. The one who achieved that. All of it is Moshe Rabbeinu.
And that's,
Abraham had part of it, Derech Adonai, Tzedakah u'Mishpat. Yitzhak Yaakov also, even Adam, okay, because he did something wrong. How would, Cain knew was wrong what he did. He never told God, what are you talking about? Never told. Noah, his generation, there was a basic moral code of society, a very basic one, fine, that somehow was transmitted to Adam according to our tradition, because he had this, how do you say, he was able to tap into what it is that, how does God want humans to behave among each other? Whatever that was, as primitive as it was, it doesn't make a difference. Now we get to the time of Moshe. Further, and this is something that I think many people have a difficult time to understand conceptually. At the moment of creation of the universe, all the laws of physics were in place already. This is also what science tell us. Within the fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a second, the four basic forces of the universe that split from two, that split from one, from that initial whatever finite second it is, was already established, and everything started to come to be. Okay? At the same time, at the moment of creation, God's will to how humanity is supposed to behave according to his code is also in it. It's intertwined in it. It's not that suddenly in 3,400 years ago, God decided, I'm now going to create a code to give to these people. Or somehow, 400 years before them, their ancestor Abraham, I'm going to now send him a certain message, blah, blah, blah. No. God is not impacted by anything or anyone. Understanding this has to do with God's will is part of the universe. We needed individuals to tap into that will. I'll call it frequency. Torah frequency, called Nevi'im, and bring it down to our level to understand it. And this is it. And the one who gave it to us in full is Moshe Rabbeinu, and no one else.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. One, when you're talking about at the moment of creation, HaKadosh Baruch Hu also like you said before, intertwined with creation is God's will, God's moral code, right? It reminds me of that midrash that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu was creating the universe, he was using, right?
Yeah. He looked in the Torah.
He looked in the Torah and he was creating the universe, right?
Chachamim are saying in their own way, in their own language.
Yeah.
Because Chachamim are saying something even more powerful. They're saying that the entire purpose of creation, the physical universe, is God's will. It's God's Torah. Or else what purpose is there for the physical universe?
Sounds like what Kohelet says at the end of his book. So davar kol yishma et ha'elohim yerav et mitzvotav shemor ki ze kol ha'adam. Right?
It's the same, again, it's the same theme.
Yeah. Right. So going back then to establishing Moshe Rabbeinu's role as the legislator, and that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu establishes at Ma'amad Har Sinai.
No. Slicha. God is the legislator.
God is the legislator, but Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who...
Moshe Rabbeinu is the before the revelation and after, actually during, okay, is a liaison between God and the Jewish people. Okay? Because according to our tradition, and even in the text, you see that after the first two declarations, two first statements, the language changes from first person to third person.
Right.
Because even though, if we look at the text, when the 10 statements in the text finish, which has to do that we shouldn't be envious, right? It tells us that the entire nation experienced the sounds, which is the thunder, the lapidim, which is the lightning, and the shofar, and the mountain is all smoky. The people went back. They were terrified. They moved back, And they stood in a distance. They stood farther from where they were initially. And they said to Moshe, Moshe is with them. You speak to us, and we will listen. And we don't want God to speak to us because we're afraid we're going to die. This is in the middle when God is transmitting the 10 declarations. It's after this third one that there's a switch. They couldn't handle it.
Mm-hmm. So this established Moshe Rabbeinu's role as
They believed in him. They trusted him to be, again, the one who will transmit the information to them. And this is what God tells Moshe. Before.
Yeah,
right? In other words, they're going to see me speaking to you, and therefore they're going to trust in your word forever. Therefore, the Torah, we have no doubt, because our ancestors witnessed God speaking to Moshe, and Moshe transmitting the information to the people.
So there's no doubt in. So it sounds like there's two doubts that were removed. One was HaKadosh Baruch Hu,
as the creator,
right?
His existence is real.
That God's existence is real, and second, the doubt that maybe Moshe Rabbeinu was just
making it up.
Making it up. So it's interesting. Last week on Shabbat, I was reading an article. I have it here. It's Chacham Fa'ur's Alav Shalom. His article on the first mitzvah of the Torah.
Classic article.
Right, the first mitzvah of the Torah, according to Harambam, right? And in the article, Chacham Fa'ur, he's breaking down step by step, fundamentally, what is the first mitzvah and what the background is for the first mitzvah itself. And in one of the sections, he discusses the Nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu.
Yes.
And in a footnote there, he brings a footnote of referencing Saadia Gaon's Emunot V'Deot, the section being where, when it comes to prophecy, that we don't know. Maybe the guy's making it up.
Yes.
Maybe he's just saying, "Oh yeah, I got a message from God, and here's the thing I'm going to perform to prove it to you." We don't really know. So, the point of the revelation that he brings is that by establishing Moshe Rabbeinu, by establishing that Moshe Rabbeinu is the prophet, he's the one,
the master,
Ribbon HaNevi'im.
Yeah.
The God substantiates Moshe Rabbeinu's role. Am Yisrael experiences it, and as well as it substantiates the prophecies prior
and latter.
Correct.
Yes.
Prior to the covenant, and then after.
Correct.
And it all stems from Moshe Rabbeinu being established as the one,
demonstrating that prophecy does exist.
Yes.
In real time.
In real time.
That's it. Prior to him, it was, could be. That was personal. This is what we spoke about this last week.
Yeah.
All the prophets prior to Moshe, it was personal to them. I don't know. Who knows? And even later ones, personal. They have their own vision. Okay, yeah, but I don't know. I wasn't part of that vision.
Right.
I don't know. Here, it comes to tell us something important. One of the things also that the people were terrified.
Yeah.
There was a belief among all ancient pagans that the God that they believe in does not speak to them, does not communicate. And if he would communicate, you die.
Okay.
The premise of it is to instill terror in the people. Why? Who came up with this concept? Clearly, either the king, who is viewed as the God, embodiment of it, or their Kohen Gadol. Therefore, you listen to me.
Or else.
Or else you will die if you claim God spoke to you.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So therefore, there cannot be any type of affront to what the king says or what the high priest says. Oppression. Later on, medieval Europe took the same, again, later on, medieval Europe took the same ancient pagan ways and adopted it, both in the church and in their governance. The Pope is infallible. The king is infallible. comes the Torah says no. God spoke to everyone. God is infallible. We are not. We'll finish with this, even though we can
Yeah.
unravel a lot more. I want to talk about, like, for 5 minutes, about this whole thing of this thick, dark cloud descending on the mountain on Har Sinai, and God tells Moshe, this is what's going to happen. All right? That thick, dark cloud is going to pretty much represent figuratively God's presence. Okay? And later on also in the Mishkan, you know, Yered Anan, this and that, Anan, up, down, this and that, Amud Anan, we have this. It's a representation of God's presence that is physically seen, even though it's not God, right? Represents. A lot of interesting details about this. What purpose is it for? This Anan, right, this cloud, was like a division between God and the people.
It's like a buffer zone.
Buffer zone, the buffer zone. I use that term today also. Buffer zone. Tell the people, listen, yes, we are getting into a contract on equal grounds from the point of view of the contract, right? I have obligations, you do too, right? We both have obligations, God is saying. But there's still an existential difference between you and me. Do not think that you can come and step on my toes. Not only that, I will never be represented within a physical body, like what the Christian faith says. No. This is out. Therefore, there's boundaries, not only within the covenant of what we each need to do and respect, but there's also boundaries as to who we are. Let's make that very clear. Another thing that it represents, it also represents power. God is demonstrating that I have power to do this. Right? Going again, this idea that He is the ruler, He's the master of the universe. So our covenant with God is He is not only the legislator, not only He's the redeemer, but He's also the creator. Everything, establishing one unique being that we worship. Another thing it represents, that it was dark, mysterious, meaning we'll never know God, ever. We'll never know how He exists. We'll never know how He knows. We will never know anything at all about who He is as who He is to Himself. What we will know is His will, how He wants us to conduct ourselves. What we will know is that how He is going to deal within the covenant relationships between us and Him. El Rahum Echanun, Erech Apayim, He's merciful, He's compassionate, He's patient, He is just, He's also kind. That is our perception of how He is going to interact with us. But He's still a mystery. Anyone who claims they know God is the biggest fool on the planet. The biggest fool and the most arrogant fool is someone saying, I know who God is. Or I was able to penetrate His mind, like some people claim.
Well, the quintessential example is Bilam, right?
Yeah, but Bilam represents that haughtiness in humanity that we all have. We all have haughtiness. Okay? Another thing that this cloud represents, because within it, in this cloud, you also have lightning. This idea that God is a mystery, but every so often, we have a flash, which is really a flash in our mind. This is what Maimonides, Harambam, in the Moreh Nevuchim, the guide, describes what God's emanation when it comes to the human intellect suddenly being aware of something, be it His will, His law, prophecy, as well as be it things that we realize when it comes to His creation, that we're able to tap into how His intelligence manifests. Right? So we should unravel, look more deeper, examine
Yeah.
deeply
Yeah.
the revelation as it's described in the book of Shemot, as well as how it's supplemented in the book of Devarim in Parashat Vaythanan and Ekev, where you have more description. It's more descriptive over there, by the way, as Moshe Rabbeinu is narrating the relation at Sinai to get a much fuller and bigger picture, not only to what happened, yeah, that's nice data, no, but the deep fundamentals that what this covenant is really about with us and God. And it's still alive. It's still functioning. The best way to demonstrate that this covenant is not dead, okay, like some what other faiths say about us, and even what some Jews say about it. Okay? Silly Jews. They're silly. They're not bad. They're just silly. I don't think they were presented Judaism in an intelligent way. Right? Is that the fact that everything that the covenant said was going to happen to us, happened to us, both good and bad. And we are in existence today outside of Israel, as well as now in the state of Israel, with a dominant presence. How else can we understand ourselves? When it comes to Am Yisrael, not only does what's the academy? West Point Academy. What's the Army
Point.
Academy in I think in
It is West Point, no?
West Point, right? In North Carolina, South Carolina, the military academy.
Yeah, West Point.
West Point.
West Point.
They have a clear understanding that how to study battles, wars, this and that. The only exception that they cannot take as a study to make it as like a rule is the wars of Israel. They say, mathematically, it makes no sense. We beat all the odds against that, and it doesn't. Again, they don't study our battles to learn from them of strategies of what they can do, because it doesn't make sense. Right? So, not only on the battlefield are we an enigma, but we're still an enigma when it comes to our communities, when it comes to the vibrant, really vibrant communities that we have. Doesn't matter where we are, there's a presence. We make no sense. So, and even when it comes to the existence of our people for 3,400 years, with everything that unimaginably happened to us, again, we are an historical enigma. We cannot be explained based on normative history. We make no sense, and that can only be understood through the covenant. If we say that, I don't know, there's flukes. How many flukes can happen? It doesn't.
It becomes absurd to think
it's
it's
absurd.
Yeah.
How many times are you gonna say I'm gonna roll a 7? How many times are you gonna say in a row? How many times? If you tell a person I'm gonna roll 100 7s in a time, nobody would bet on that. 2, 3, 4, maybe. We beat all the odds, and it's only because of this Torah. And this is what I stress to my students in high school, and I tell them, yes, you learn a lot of history in your other classes, both Jewish history, non-Jewish, European history, American history, all that. We can understand other histories. We can't understand ours relative to their histories. We make no sense. And the only way we can understand ourselves, of our existence and our success, right, is by saying we have a covenant with God. That is the best answer we can give. It's the only answer we can give. As well as the only answer we can give that when it comes to our claim over the land of Israel, the territory, nothing, no argument, nothing. My ancestors have a covenant with God, who is the ruler and the creator of the planet Earth, and he promised it to us on conditions. What claim do you have to your land? Conquest. Oh, your ancestors don't have a covenant with their God? No. You don't even know who your real ancestors were. We do. So the ultimate answer to say that we belong in Eretz Israel, having our government physically there, the only answer is because the Torah says so. So what other answer are you going to give? You're going to get into a debate? It's silly.
What keeps happening?
I think it's absurd, in my opinion. It's absurd. What claim? What claim? What claim, really? What claim do the people in France have being in the territory of France? This wasn't yours at one point in time. There were tribes before you. Europe, especially Northern Europe, France, Spain, Germany, was all tribes during the Roman Empire. Some survived, by the way. The Romans were not able to defeat them. Okay, the Roman Empire, bye-bye, around the 6th century, bye-bye. There's many tribes still. Are your ancestors from these, Gothic tribes or whatever? Who are they? What claim do they have? Let's not even talk about America. Don't even go there, okay? What claim? It's understood. I conquered it, my territory. It's understood. This is worldwide, anywhere you go. It doesn't really make a difference. It doesn't matter how long you were even there for. Oh, even the native Indians of America. Yeah, they also came here at one point in time through the straits between Alaska and Russia when it was ice, and they also came. What happened to the people that were living here before the Indians? I don't know. We don't know. Okay, so it's Indian. The same thing in South America. In South America. Many of the people from South America really come from Asia, from the islands of Asia, way in prehistoric times. They crossed oceans. So we're going to say, but you don't belong there. Let's stop that. Okay? It's impossible. At the end of the day, Hashamayim Shemaim Adonai, Va'arth Livnei Adam. Right? He gave planet Earth to humans to settle in it, and use it, make boundaries, no problem, and govern yourselves properly and have peace. Okay? Don't come and say that there happens to be one particular nation that doesn't belong on planet Earth even. Why? Because you don't like us? Because we're your moral compass? Because we remind you of good and bad and right and wrong and good and evil? Really? And that's not moral? You don't like us, huh? Because we have a covenant with God? That's why they hate us. So don't tell me that I don't have a place on this planet. I do. It's called Eretz Israel, and you recognize it. If you're a Christian, you recognize it. And if you're a Muslim, you recognize it, because your own Quran says it 3 times. So don't even go there. Okay. And more than this, if you're going to tell me that it's all based on conquest, well, clearly we conquered you. In 1948, when you attacked us for no reason, because you wanted it all. You wanted to get rid of all of the Jews in Israel. Till today, that's what you want to do, except for the countries that came to their senses and said, let's make peace. Okay? Hopefully we'll have more of that. But if you really think about it, it's either, well, we have a covenant with God. Well, I don't like that. Well, it's based on conquest. Just like you claim conquest, we claim conquest. No, but still, the people that live there, no, sorry, they can live under us and respect our rules and law, just like we have immigrants coming to every country in the world. I haven't heard yet, it might happen, I haven't heard yet people who come from Mexico and who are living in Illinois saying, we claim this area, we want to have this land back, whatever, they can fabricate their own history, and say, we want to have another Mexican country state here in Illinois. What the hell, excuse me? How can you have a state within a state? It's absurd. The only country in the world that talks about it is modern Israel. It's just delusional. Oh yeah, we want to have a state within the state. How does that exactly work? Shigaon. But slowly, the way God's will unfolds, if we trust and understand and see our past, that we had bigger problems, way bigger problems,
Yeah.
and things worked out. So this will hopefully, with Hashem, in our faith in the covenant that we have our faith in ourselves, and choosing the best choices of governments that believe in the vision of the Torah, the vision of what we're trying to create, then yeah, it'll happen. Just a matter of time. Just a matter of time.
Yeah. There's a lot more to discuss on this, that's for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
But again, I think the nice thing about these podcasts is that we touch on a lot of different things within the central theme, and it's all connected.
Yeah.
It's all connected, and it's just, I like it because it just, you can take an element of it and then continue the conversation about something else and then connect to something else. It's not narrowness. That is not what this podcast is about. Part of this podcast, this dynamic, is that everything is everything, all knowledge, all intelligence stems from God. That's our belief. What we say, including the Torah, including everything. So therefore, we have to find connections that are either direct or even indirect, somehow, to see how does everything fit in within God's vision of what He wants for humanity. Or else, we say there's a contradiction, and God doesn't contradict Himself. So, is it challenging? Yeah. That's why it's dynamic, because it's always moving somewhere. It's heading somewhere. That's the whole thing of the Merkava, the chariot. It's heading somewhere. We don't know where. God is the steerer. Right? We are His tool to make His will manifest.
I think we're going to have to unpack that a little bit more later.
Yeah. It's going to be a long one. Yes.
Baruch Adonai Le'olam.
Amen. Baruch.
Baruch.